The city plunges into an unnerving silence, broken only by the distant wail of a single siren that soon fades. Darkness swallows everything. It's not just the lights that are out, the systems that hold society together have flickered and died. In this new, oppressive quiet, you hear something else. Footsteps outside your door, unfamiliar and slow. The blackout has begun, and the thin veil of civilization has already started to tear. Your careful preparations were meant for you and your family. But what happens when the unprepared and the desperate realize you have what they need to survive? Every flicker of a candle in your window, every scent of food cooking becomes a beacon. They will come looking. Your friendly neighbors could become strangers driven by fear, and those lurking in the shadows won't hesitate. This isn't about weathering a storm, it's about surviving the people the darkness unleashes. The most valuable survival items are the first things they'll take, and you need to protect them before it's too late. 1. The juice that keeps you alive. Let's be blunt. When the grid goes down for good, the first thing to become currency isn't gold or cash, it's power. I'm talking about the AA batteries in your remote, the D cells in your flashlight, and especially that high-capacity power bank you keep for emergencies. In the immediate aftermath of a widespread blackout, these items are the difference between having light and communication and being left in the dark, deaf and dumb. That makes them a prime target. Anyone who failed to prepare will become desperate, and that desperation will drive them to take what you have. They will see the faint glow of your flashlight through a window or hear the crackle of a radio and know you have what they need. Your power source becomes a beacon for the unprepared, and they won't be coming over to ask nicely. We saw this during the 2021 Texas freeze. Within 72 hours, the price of batteries skyrocketed, selling for 4 times their normal cost. People weren't just buying them, they were fighting over them. Reports emerged of break-ins where thieves bypassed expensive electronics and jewelry, heading straight for battery packs and portable chargers. They weren't after luxury, they were after survival. You need to get smart about protecting your power supply. Stashing your batteries in a kitchen drawer is an amateur move. That's the first place anyone will look. You need to think like a looter and hide your assets where they won't bother searching. I keep a portion of my batteries tucked away inside an old, hollowed-out toolbox filled with rusty, useless tools. Another stash is hidden behind an HVAC panel that requires a specific screwdriver to open a simple but effective delay. Hollowed-out books on a crowded shelf are a classic for a reason. The key is to make these items inconvenient to find. Furthermore, I employ decoys. I leave a few half-dead batteries in a cheap, low-capacity power bank in an obvious. A desperate thief will grab these and think they've scored, moving on without searching for the real prize. It's a calculated loss to protect a much greater asset. Another critical mistake to avoid is signaling your resources. Don't charge all your devices at once. The combined glow of multiple charging LEDs is a dead giveaway that you have a functioning power source. Charge one device at a time, preferably in a room with blacked-out windows. In a world without power, a tiny green light is a dinner bell for the desperate. 2. The barrier against sickness and chaos. When the water stops running and the toilets stop flushing, society's thin veneer of cleanliness disintegrates with terrifying speed. Sanitation isn't a luxury, it's the barrier between a manageable crisis and a catastrophic disease outbreak. Without it, your home becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, and your community transforms into a petri dish. This is why basic hygiene supplies, toilet paper, soap, hand sanitizer, feminine products, diapers and wet wipes will become more valuable than gold. People who scoffed at preppers stockpiling toilet paper will be the first ones kicking down doors for a single roll when dysentery starts making the rounds. They will quickly realize that without a way to stay clean, sickness is inevitable, and they will do anything to get their hands on your supplies. We have concrete proof of this. After Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, the island saw a 58% spike in gastrointestinal illnesses directly linked to the collapse of sanitation systems. In Venezuela's economic implosion, diapers and feminine hygiene products became black market treasures, bartered for at incredible rates. These aren't just comfort items, they are frontline tools in the fight against infection and death. Protecting these assets requires a different strategy than hiding batteries. You can't just have one giant stash of toilet paper in a closet. You must decentralize. I spread my supplies across multiple, unconventional locations. A few rolls of toilet paper might be stored inside an empty cereal box in the pantry. Hand sanitizer could be tucked away in a first aid kit, but also inside a winter boot in the back of a closet. Wet wipes can be removed from their original packaging and stored in smaller Ziploc bags, hidden in various drawers and containers throughout the house. Think about places people wouldn't rummage through for valuables. The space under the kitchen sink is an obvious target, so I use it for decoys. A half-used bar of soap, a nearly empty bottle of shampoo, and a few expired, dried-out wet wipes create the illusion that I have nothing of value. The most important rule is to maintain absolute operational security. Never let a neighbor, no matter how friendly they seem now, know the extent of your preparations. Don't lend out a roll of toilet paper or a bottle of hand sanitizer. That small act of kindness is a signal that you have more, making you a target when their own supplies run out and fear takes over. 3. The armor against the elements. When the power is out and the furnace is dead, the temperature inside your home will start to match the temperature outside. In a cold weather scenario, a well-insulated jacket is more valuable than a vault of cash. Warm clothing, blankets, sleeping bags, and other cold weather gear are not just for comfort, they are essential survival armor. Hypothermia is a silent and efficient killer, and it doesn't take Arctic temperatures to become a threat. A sustained indoor temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit can be lethal over time, especially for the very young or elderly. People will quickly realize their fashionable fall jackets and thin decorative blankets are useless against a relentless, penetrating cold. Their focus will shift from finding food to finding warmth, and they will look for anyone who appears to be weathering the cold without issue. If you're seen outside wearing a proper winter coat while everyone else is shivering in hoodies, you've just painted a target on your back. The conflict in Ukraine provided a brutal, modern lesson in this reality. During widespread power outages, families who had stockpiled proper winter gear, thermal layers, wool blankets, insulated boots, survived far better than those who only had food. Warmth became the most critical resource, and those without it suffered or perished. Hiding bulky items like blankets and coats requires some ingenuity. The goal is to make them seem like worthless clutter. I use heavy-duty, lockable totes for my best cold weather gear, but instead of labeling them winter clothes or survival gear, I use the most boring labels I can think of. Holiday decorations, old tax records, or kids' school projects. No one in a hurry is going to waste time breaking into a tote they think is full of dusty Christmas ornaments. I also practice the art of hiding in plain sight. A vacuum-sealed bag of wool socks and thermal underwear can be slid between a mattress and box spring. A high-quality sleeping bag, compressed into its stuff sack, can be shoved into the back of a closet behind old luggage. Gloves can be separated and hidden in different coat pockets or inside empty cereal boxes. Just as with other supplies, it's crucial to manage your public profile. Avoid wearing your best gear outside. Have a sacrificial coat, something that looks worn and provides minimal warmth for any necessary trips outdoors. Appearing just as cold and miserable as everyone else is your best camouflage. Flaunting your preparedness is an invitation for someone more desperate and colder than you to take it by force. 4. The seeds of tomorrow's survival. In the immediate chaos of a blackout, the focus will be on canned goods and bottled water. But as the days turn into weeks, and the grim reality of a long-term collapse sets in, a new form of currency will emerge. Seeds. The ability to grow your own food is the ultimate key to long-term survival. A small, well-protected packet of heirloom seeds holds more value than a pantry full of expiring canned soup. It represents a renewable source of food, self-sufficiency, and a future. Those who failed to plan this far ahead will eventually realize their mistake. When their scavenged supplies run dry, they will see any patch of cultivated land not as a garden, but as a grocery store. More importantly, they will see the seeds themselves as the ultimate prize. Why risk raiding a garden when you can steal the source and plant your own? We saw this during the Great Depression, where families with a history of farming guarded their heirloom seeds with their lives, often trading them like precious metals. In the more recent collapse of Venezuela, where food production disintegrated, seed theft became rampant. Having the means to grow food was one of the only viable paths to survival, and people became ruthless to acquire it. Protecting something as small and valuable as seeds demands extreme caution. Storing them in their original colorful packets in a garden shed is asking for them to be stolen. you must disguise their true nature. I store my seeds in containers that have nothing to do with gardening. Old VHS tape cases, for example, are perfect. No one looting for food or medicine is going to bother with a dusty copy of a forgotten movie. I also use my lar bags, which are excellent for preservation, but I mislabel them with mundane descriptions like craft supplies or spare nuts and bolts. Decentralization is also critical here. I never keep all my seeds in one place. I have a small collection of corn seeds in one location, beans in another, and squash in a third. Losing one small cache to a thief is a setback. Losing the entire collection is a death sentence. Finally, I use decoys. In a more obvious storage area, I keep a collection of hybrid seeds, the kind you can buy at any big box store. These seeds will produce a crop for one season, but their offspring will be sterile or unreliable. A thief who steals them will think they've secured their future, only to discover their mistake a year later, long after they've left me alone. This isn't just about hiding, it's about strategic deception for the long haul. 5. The paper that proves you exist. When the system breaks, the rules of value get rewritten. The fancy credit cards in your wallet will be worthless plastic, but the tangible things, your driver's license, your passport, your birth certificate, and a wad of cold, hard cash become lifelines. These items are the keys to a world that might still exist outside your immediate bubble of chaos. They are your ticket to accessing aid, proving you are who you say you are, and navigating a world where digital records have vanished. People will kill for thee. In the aftermath of disasters like Hurricane Katrina or the earthquake in Haiti, countless people were denied access to aid, shelter, and resources, simply because they couldn't produce identification. They existed, but without the right piece of paper, they were ghosts in the system. Cash is even more fundamental. When the power is out, ATMs are just heavy boxes and credit card readers are paperweights. Cash becomes the only universally accepted medium of exchange. It can buy you food, medicine, or a safe way out of a bad situation. Those who have none will be desperate to get some, and they won't think twice about taking yours. Protecting these assets is a high-stakes game. A wallet in your back pocket is an open invitation. You need to think about security on multiple levels. I keep my most critical documents, passport, birth certificates, and property deeds, in a small fireproof safe. But I don't just stick it in a closet. It's bolted down in an inconspicuous location, hidden behind a false vent panel that requires a specific tool to remove. This isn't just about hiding it, it's about making it too difficult and time-consuming for a smash-and-grab looter to access, but one location is never enough. I have high-quality paper and digital backup. Paper copies are laminated and stashed in different locations, including one in a waterproof bag buried in my yard. Digital copies are stored on multiple encrypted USB drives, also hidden separately. One is on my keychain, another is sewn into the lining of a winter coat. For cash, you must split it up. A big wad in one place is a huge risk. I divide my cash into numerous small stashes. Some is in the pocket of an old jacket I never wear. Some is rolled up tight inside a hollowed-out tube of deodorant. And another bit is taped inside the battery compartment of an old, broken electronic device. The goal is redundancy and deception. If one stash is found, it's a small loss, not a catastrophe. 6. The source of life itself. Let's get one thing straight. You can survive weeks without food, but you'll be dead in 3 days without water. When the pumps stop and the taps run dry, clean water becomes the single most valuable commodity on the planet. Nothing else even comes close. The bottled water you have stored, the filter that can make river water drinkable. These are not just supplies, they are your life. And because they will be the first thing desperate people hunt for. A person maddened by thirst is more dangerous than one driven by hunger. They will see you carrying a jug of water and see their own survival. They won't ask to share, they will take it. The water crisis in Flint, Michigan was a tame preview. Even there, stores were stripped bare of bottled water within 2 days. After Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, the situation was far more dire. With no clean running water, people were forced to drink from contaminated streams and collection points, leading to widespread illness. Those who had stored water or had filtration systems became targets. The sight of someone using a Sawyer filter by a river was an advertisement that they had the means to survive, making them vulnerable. Hiding water is a challenge due to its bulk, but it's not impossible. The key is to avoid the obvious places. Stacking cases of bottled water in your garage or kitchen is like putting up a sign that says "Loot here." You have to decentralize your water storage and use dead space. I keep a significant amount of water stored in my crawl space, which is dark, cool, and difficult to access. Another cache is hidden behind a false back in a little used closet. I use water bricks and other stackable containers that can fit into odd spaces. Your water filter is just as critical and much easier to hide. Don't keep it with your camping gear. I store my primary filter in a toolbox, mixed in with wrenches and screwdrivers. My backup chemical purification tablets are inside an old bottle of aspirin, complete with a cotton ball on top. I also believe in having multiple systems. I have a primary gravity-fed filter, a portable squeeze filter, chemical tablets, and the knowledge to build a charcoal purifier. If one system is stolen or fails, I have backups. Never let anyone see your water source or your filtration method. If you must collect water from a public source, do it at night and be discreet. Survival depends on keeping the location and existence of your water supply a secret known only to you. 7. The flame that keeps you human. In a world without electricity, the simple act of cooking a hot meal becomes a monumental task. The ability to heat food and boil water isn't just a matter of comfort, it's a critical component of sanitation and morale. A hot meal can fight off the chill and provide a psychological boost that is hard to overstate. But the very act of cooking can also be your doom. The smell of food cooking and the sight of smoke or flame are powerful signals to everyone within a wide radius that you have both food and the means to cook it. This makes your alternative cooking gear and its fuel an incredibly valuable and dangerous asset. During the siege of Sarajevo in the 1990s, residents lived in constant fear. They had to devise ingenious ways to cook indoors with minimal smoke to avoid attracting the attention of snipers or desperate neighbors. More recently, after Hurricane Sandy, an estimated 60% of New York City residents in affected areas had no way to cook within 48 hours of the outage. The desperation for a hot meal was palpable. Your propane grill in the backyard becomes a beacon. Your stash of butane canisters becomes a treasure chest. You have to hide your cooking systems and fuel with the same diligence you apply to your food and water. I store my primary rocket stove, disassembled, inside a large storage bin labeled old cables and wires. No one is going to sift through a tangled mess of obsolete chargers and coaxial cables looking for a stove. My backup alcohol stove is tiny and stored inside a metal coffee can filled with old rags. The fuel requires even more creative camouflage. I've seen people disguise butane canisters by building fake paint can shells around them. Wood pellets or charcoal can be stored in double-lined trash bins, appearing as nothing more than garbage. It's also vital to have multiple varied systems. I have a wood-burning gasifier stove for outdoor use when it's safe, a quiet alcohol stove for indoor use with proper ventilation, and a simple setup for using solid fuel tablets. The key is to be able to cook without creating obvious signals. An indoor alcohol stove produces no smoke. A well-designed rocket stove burns so efficiently that it produces very little smoke after the first few minutes. Practice using your gear now, so you know how to operate it discreetly when it counts. Your ability to prepare a meal in secret could be the difference between eating and being eaten. The luxuries that fuel the will to live. When you're in the thick of a long-term crisis, survival becomes more than just a physical battle. It's a relentless mental war against despair, boredom, and hopelessness. In that fight, small comforts and distractions are not luxuries. They are weapons. I'm talking about the morale boosters. A deck of cards, a book, a crank-powered radio, a bar of chocolate, or a small stash of coffee. These items provide a link to normalcy, a way to pass the crushing hours of darkness, and a reason to keep pushing forward. Their value cannot be measured in calories or utility, but they are essential for long-term psychological endurance. And because they are so critical to the human spirit, they will be targeted. A person who has lost all hope is dangerous, but a person who sees you have a source of comfort they lack will be driven by a powerful and bitter envy. In collapsed Venezuela, simple board games and the batteries for a radio became black market gold. In the aftermath of the Fukushima disaster in 2011, survivors spoke at length about the overwhelming importance of simple distractions to cope with the trauma and uncertainty. Because these items are often small, hiding them is relatively simple. But you must be disciplined. I keep a small collection of paperbacks, but I also have hundreds of books loaded onto an old Kindle that is kept along with a solar charger in a Faraday bag. A deck of cards can be slipped inside a hollowed-out book. I keep a stash of hard candy and instant coffee packets tucked into the lining of a suitcase. An old, non-functional laptop shell is a perfect place to hide a shortwave radio and some spare earbuds. The most important strategy with morale boosters is not just hiding them, but rationing their use. Don't play the radio so loudly that your neighbors can hear it. If you're playing a card game with your family, do it away from windows where a flicker of candlelight might betray your activity. Blackout curtains are not just for light discipline, they are for privacy. Rotate your morale items. Don't read the same book every night, or drink your precious coffee every morning. By rationing them, you maintain their psychological value over time. That small, controlled dose of normalcy is what will keep you sane when the world outside has gone mad. It's the fuel for your will to survive. Bonus point 9. The tools for defense and offense. Let's stop being polite about this. When society collapses, the social contract is shredded. Your survival will not be guaranteed by kindness or community spirit. It will be guaranteed by your ability to defend what is yours. This brings us to the most fiercely sought after and dangerous items of all: tools of defense. I'm talking about firearms, ammunition, knives, and even less conventional weapons like crossbows or a well-made slingshot. In a world without law enforcement, these items are the final word in any disagreement. They are the ultimate equalizer and the only true deterrent against those who would take everything you have by force. The moment the power goes out, anyone with a weapon becomes a king, and anyone without one becomes a serf. People who never considered owning a gun will become desperate to find one. They will know that without a means to project force, they are at the mercy of the ruthless. The first sign of weakness, the first rumor that you are armed while they are not, will make you a primary target. They won't come to steal your food. They'll come to steal your gun so they can then take your food and everything else. Protecting these assets is the most critical task you will have. Leaving a shotgun in a standard gun cabinet with a glass front is suicide. It's an advertisement. You need to think in terms of deep concealment and decentralized storage. I never keep all my firearms or ammunition in one place. One rifle might be hidden in a purpose-built concealment compartment behind a bookshelf. A handgun could be vacuum-sealed and stored inside a PVC pipe cache buried in the backyard, its location marked by an innocuous garden gnome. Ammunition should be stored separately from the firearms themselves. I keep some in mislabeled paint cans in the garage, weighted to feel correct. Other boxes are tucked away in the bottom of a bin filled with old, musty clothes destined for donation. Decoys are also essential. A cheap, broken pellet gun stored in an obvious gun case can satisfy a looter who thinks they've found your primary weapon, allowing them to make off with a useless item while your real defenses remain secure. The most important rule is silence. Never, ever reveal that you are armed. Don't open carry, don't boast, and don't use a firearm for a trivial threat. The moment you fire a shot, you've broadcasted your position and your capability to everyone within earshot. Discretion is your shield. Your weapon is your last resort. Bonus point 10. The medical supplies for when there is no doctor. When the grid is down, 911 is just a sequence of dead numbers. A simple cut can become a life-threatening infection. A broken bone is a permanent disability. A fever is a potential death sentence. In this reality, medical supplies and the knowledge to use them become more valuable than any other resource. I'm not just talking about a box of cartoon character band-aids and some ibuprofen. I'm talking about trauma supplies, tourniquets, chest seals, and pressure dressings. I'm talking about broad-spectrum antibiotics you acquired for just this scenario. I'm talking about sutures, dental extraction kits, and burn treatments. These are the items that will mean the difference between life and death when there is no doctor, no clinic, and no pharmacy. People will realize this with terrifying speed. The first time a child gets a high fever or a family member is injured during a scavenging run, a frantic search for medical supplies will begin. Anyone known to have been a nurse, a paramedic, or even just a well-prepared individual will have their door kicked in by people desperate to save a loved one. Your first aid kit becomes a treasure chest they will stop at nothing to acquire. Securing your medical stockpile requires a multi-layered approach. You cannot simply have one large, well-stocked trauma bag. That's a single point of failure. I break my supplies down into smaller purpose-built kits. A small bleeding control kit is hidden in my vehicle. A more comprehensive trauma kit is stored in a nondescript backpack in the back of a closet. The most valuable items like antibiotics and anesthetics are stored with extreme care. I remove them from their original bottles and place them in mislabeled containers, like supplement or vitamin bottles, and hide them in different locations. One stash might be inside a hollowed-out book titled Advanced Accounting, while another is tucked inside a bag of potting soil in the shed. You must make your supplies invisible and uninteresting. Furthermore, knowledge is just as important as the supplies themselves. I have multiple downloaded, printed, and laminated medical guides. These books are stored separately from the kit. If someone steals a bag of supplies they don't know how to use, it's less of a loss for me and less of a benefit for them. Never advertise your medical knowledge or supplies. If a neighbor comes asking for a bandage, give them one and say it was your last one. Any act of medical charity in a collapse is an advertisement that you have a pharmacy, and you will be looted for it. Bonus point 11. The Library of Lost Knowledge. In a world without the internet, without power for our devices, humanity will be thrown back into a technological dark age. The vast repository of human knowledge that we access with a simple click will be gone. How do you purify water? How do you build a snare? How do you identify edible plants? How do you repair a generator, treat an infection, or navigate by the stars? This information is the software for survival, and without it, all the hardware, the gear and supplies, is significantly less useful. This is why a physical library of critical information is an asset of unimaginable value. I'm talking about books and printed guides on homesteading, bushcraft, herbal medicine, mechanics, tactics, and construction. This library of lost knowledge is a long-term survival multiplier. In the early days, no one will be thinking about books. But as the crisis drags on, and people realize their own ignorance is a lethal liability, your information will become a target. They will see you successfully growing food or fixing a tool, and realize you have a secret. You have the instruction manual for survival. Your library must be protected and redundant. I have a core collection of physical books, my most trusted guides that I've read and annotated. These are hidden in plain sight, mixed in with hundreds of other worthless fiction paperbacks on a large bookshelf. A looter is looking for food or guns, not a book on animal husbandry. But my primary system is digital, stored on several encrypted USB drives, and an old e-reader that holds thousands of PDFs. These devices are stored in Faraday bags to protect them from an EMP and are hidden in separate, secure locations. One drive is sealed inside the frame of a piece of art hanging on the wall. The e-reader is kept in a box labeled Old Family Photos. The key is that the information itself is the asset, not the format. I also maintain laminated printed copies of the most essential charts and guides, local edible plants, radio frequencies, medical triage steps. These are scattered in different bags and kits. Possessing this knowledge makes you powerful, but sharing it indiscriminately makes you a target. Never let on that your success is due to a well-curated library. Let others believe you're just lucky or a natural. Your knowledge is your strategic advantage. Don't give it away. Bonus point 12. The barter goods for a new economy. When the cash runs out and the initial chaos subsides, a new economy will rise from the ashes. It will be an economy based on barter, where tangible goods and vices are the currency. Preparing for this reality is a step beyond mere survival. It's about positioning yourself to thrive and acquire things you may have overlooked. The most valuable barter goods are not what you might think. They are small, desirable, and often addictive items that people will crave once the supply chains are cut. I'm talking about cigarettes, alcohol, especially hard liquor in small, easily divisible bottles, coffee, sugar, salt, and spices. These items provide comfort, a taste of the old world, and a way to cope with stress. A man who has food but no salt will eventually trade a significant amount of that food for a small bag of it. A person desperate for a nicotine fix will trade you their spare batteries for a handful of cigarettes. These are not just morale boosters for yourself. They are a calculated investment in a future currency. They are compact, store for a long time, and have a universal appeal that transcends the immediate needs of survival. Stockpiling these goods requires you to think like a black market merchant. You must acquire them legally now and store them for the long term. I buy cartons of cigarettes and cases of small 50 ml liquor bottles, the kind they serve on airplanes. They are easy to store, easy to hide, and represent a perfect unit of trade. I keep them in ammo cans in the back of a closet, which deters moisture and pests. Instant coffee, sugar, and salt are vacuum sealed into smaller packets. This prevents spoilage and breaks them down into tradable units. Hiding them follows the same principles as other supplies: decentralize and disguise. A box of liquor bottles can be hidden inside a larger box for an old worthless appliance in the attic. Sealed coffee pouches can be slipped into the pockets of old coats. When it comes time to barter, you must do so with extreme caution. Never trade from your home. Never reveal the full extent of your inventory. Arrange to meet in a neutral location and only bring the exact amount you intend to trade. In the new economy, being known as the person with a stockpile of liquor and cigarettes makes you the equivalent of a bank, and you can be sure someone will eventually try to make an unauthorized withdrawal.